What's the difference between these two sentences which are said the same but are written differently? The kid's hands are dirty and the kid's hands are dirty. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the 3 rules for using the apostrophe in English to show possession. By the way, I'm Danny, your teacher and creator of Cultivando Inglês. Before we get started, I'd like you to know that I've created a PDF with practice exercises for today's lesson. You can download it for free by clicking on the link in the video's description. Now let's get back to our lesson. When talking about possession, we first have to understand the difference between the possessor and the object of possession. The possessor is a noun or a name to which something belongs. For example, in the sentence, "This is Adam's phone." Adam is the possessor because the phone belongs to Adam. The object of possession is the phone because it is the thing that belongs to the possessor. Notice that in English, the possessor and the object of possession appear in the opposite order from Portuguese. For example, in the sentence, "Esse é o celular do Adão," celular comes before Adão. Now let's talk about how we use the apostrophe to show possession. As we saw in the example with Adam's phone, the apostrophe always goes with the possessor. You can think of the apostrophe as the equivalent of the preposition de in Portuguese. For example, Danny's computer, Katie's sisters. When we use an apostrophe to show possession, sometimes we add an apostrophe plus the letter S, and sometimes we add an apostrophe without the letter S. For example, "This is Natalie's car," but these are the teacher's names. So, how do we know when to add just an apostrophe and when to add an apostrophe plus the letter S? Well, it depends on whether the possessor is singular or plural. Whenever the possessor is a singular noun or name, we always add apostrophe S. For example, my brother's name is David. This is my mom's ring. These are Amanda's. Even when the possessor already ends in the letter S, we still add an apostrophe S. The pronunciation of the apostrophe S is the same as the pronunciation of the word is. For example, my boss's name is Sarah. These are Charles's books. These are James's toys. In written English, for names that end in S, it is also acceptable to add only an apostrophe without an S afterwards. However, we still pronounce the apostrophe as if there were an S after it. For example, Lucas's mom is Brazilian. Those are Thomas's friends. Now, what happens when the possessor is a plural noun? In this case, whether or not we add an apostrophe S or just an apostrophe depends on the final letter of the plural possessor. If the final letter of the plural possessor is the letter S, which, by the way, is the case for the vast majority of nouns in the English language, then we add only an apostrophe. And in this case, the apostrophe does not change the pronunciation of the word. For example, the dogs' names are Molly and Spot. My parents' house is nearby. The students' books are brand new. However, there are some words in English whose plural form does not end in the letter S. For these words, we add an apostrophe S. In other words, we treat them as if they were singular nouns. For example, the children's toys are in the other room. The men's bathroom is down the hallway on the right. The people's voices are not being heard. Now, let's look again at the two sentences I said at the very beginning of this lesson. The kids' hands are dirty. The kids' hands are dirty. At this point, you probably understand the difference in meaning. But do you see a potential problem? That's right. Since these two sentences are pronounced exactly the same, how would someone know which one you are saying in a conversation? Well, usually it's clear from the context. But what if it's not clear? Or what if there is no context? What we can do is add the word all if the possessor is plural. For example, all the kids' hands are dirty. The use of the word all makes it clear that you're talking about more than just one person. But what if you are talking about just one kid? Well, if the person listening thinks it is important enough to know whether you are talking about one kid or all of the kids, they might ask something like, all the kids or just one kid? And that's okay. Ambiguity is normal and a natural part of the language. Now it's time for some homework. In the comments below, write two sentences using an apostrophe to show possession. In the first sentence, use a singular possessor, and in the second sentence, use a plural possessor. If you found this lesson helpful, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel so that you can get notified whenever I post a new video. Thanks, and see you next time. Bye.